Hey there, it's Robonzo here. My guest for this episode is multi-instrumentalist and songwriter Kofy Brown. We navigate the balancing act of her many projects, how she's managed to stay in high demand, and what she'd say to younger players about creating an in-demand and joyful music career. Let's do this. This is the Unstarving Musicians Podcast. I'm your host, Robonzo. This podcast features conversations with me and indie music artists. Conversations intended to help other indie musicians be better at marketing, business, the creative process, and all the other things that empower us to do more of what we love. Make music. Kofy Brown has a new album with a band called Skip the Needle and a new solo album of her own that just came out. I preview a track from the solo album in this episode. You're going to hear that in just a few. Skip the Needle was a fun project that got picked up by the Little Village Foundation, which you may have heard about on this podcast if you listen to either of my interviews with musician-producer Kid Anderson. Anyway, Kofy is crazy busy and crazy happy with her music career. I'd like to take a moment to thank everyone who has or is supporting the Unstarving Musician podcast/project. Wait, what? This whole thing is intended to help independent musicians through a curation of expertise of the now hundreds of musicians that I have interviewed for this podcast and the Unstarving Musician's Guide to Getting Paid Gigs and things coming. If that endeavor speaks to you, visit unstarvingmusician.com/crowd sponsor to learn about the various ways that you can offer your support. And by the way, if you're a listener and you shared this podcast with a friend, I consider you a supporter. Thank you. Yeah, busy, crazy happy. Kofy and I talk about being in demand and how she got there. She has a great network. She had good parents. I mention that last part because she takes her upbringing into her music, into her professionalism. Here's me and Kofy Brown.
Let's do it.
All right. I did find out about you through Kid Anderson and work that you're doing with your project Skip the Needle. Tell me about how you, Kid, and Jim Pugh and the Little Village Foundation collided.
I think that's a good way of describing it, that we collided. Yeah. So I play drums in Skip the Needle, and Skip the Needle, just, a little context. We are myself, Kofy Brown, Shelly Doty on guitar, Katie Cash on guitar, and Vicki Randall on bass. And we're friends, and we all have our own projects that we do. And we came together to kind of jam and play and to do different instrumentation. So for me, drums was fairly new. For Vicki, bass was new. And Katie and Shelly are still just doing their guitar thing. And, we write and we play and we have a really good time. And so it's fun, right? That's the main thing I want to get across. We're having a good time together. We get to explore musically, support each other and learning, new instruments. And I think it's contagious. Truthfully, I think that when people saw us, we were just our initials. We started off as KVSK, and that's Katie, Vicki, Shelly, Kofy, just friends jamming. And our friends would come to shows, little shows, Dolores Park Cafe, El Rio, and they'd be like, "You guys got to get a name. This is ridiculous." So we got a name, and then our friend Maurice Tanny, who, he plays with my partner, Margaret Belton, is a part of Little Village Foundation, and said, "Oh my God, you guys," he saw us at the Freight and said, "You'd be great for the Little Village. They don't have anything like this."
Yeah, right.
And we were like, "Really? Tell us about that, because, we're just really having fun at this." And he said, "It's a nonprofit record company." And we kind of laughed. A nonprofit record company.
I understand that.
Right? What does that mean? And sure enough, and then Vicki and Jim Pugh go back, at least 30 some years. So we found this connection that we have, and then the new connection with Maurice, and we found out what these guys were doing. And Kid Anderson, we saw him play with Maurice and went down to the studios, and he's just fantastic at what he does. And it just kind of hit each other, and it was a great fit. Jim was like, "I like what you guys are doing. I like the energy," and we were like, "Well, we have never heard of a nonprofit record label, and we like the idea of that because we're just having, a good time. And if it goes somewhere, great, but where it's going, we love, meaning it brings joy and goodness to our lives, you know what I mean? It keeps us sane as artists. So, yeah, maybe this can work out.
That's very cool.
Yeah, so that's sort of a long-winded answer, but that's how it all kind of happened.
Yeah, well, and they are doing extraordinary work at Little Village Foundation, and yes, that kid Anderson, he's quite the talent.
Yes, he is. Yeah.
So I think the album just came out like yesterday, right?
It did. It came out. It dropped yesterday, and it's funny, right? Because we set up our Bandcamp page, but with CD Baby and all of these other labels, but we have the app for Bandcamp, and 2 people bought it. 3 people bought it.
Nice.
Yeah, it's just cool that people are responding, and the community is coming out, and it's a good record, man. We all are really proud of it, and we like it. And I don't know. Do you play an instrument? Do you write at all?
I'm a longtime drummer. I have written music, but not much. And actually, it was years ago, and I just recently picked the guitar back up because I kind of put myself in a situation where I'm not surrounded by the music community I once was surrounded by, which was local to you. I was based in San Jose for 17 years, and then Dallas-Fort Worth prior to that. But yes, I do play, to answer your question.
Great. Well, I guess the reason I asked is that to see if this is relatable. Sometimes you play something or you write something, and you're not sure about it, and then later on you listen to it and you're not too fond of it anymore, and you move on, right? And so I think many artists have that experience. And what's kind of great about this record is that Jim saying, hey, we want you guys to be on the label, and do you have anything? And we had a couple things, but we really had to write new stuff for the record. And it was challenging, and we were like, can we do this? Because we all, are busy. So we jumped in the studio, and we just kind of wrote these songs, and we wrote them, and they have that stickable feeling.
That earwormy kind of quality.
It's like, these are good, and sometimes you need distance in order to know that and believe that. And I think we all kind of came back, and we were like, we did good, y'all. We like these songs that we put out.
Oh, that's so good to hear.
Doesn't have to be the case. Yeah, that's all I'm saying. Yeah,
that's great to hear. So, I haven't even listened to the whole thing. In fact, I saw a video of the 4 of you performing, and I thought it was great. And
thank you.
So I'm looking forward to hearing the album. And I wasn't even aware. I'm just kind of doing a little homework here before we got on our call, and I saw that it had just dropped. I have also explored some of your work, and I didn't realize we were going to be. So I said it just dropped yesterday, so people are going to be listening to this like going into the second week of August 2019. So we're talking today on the 26th of July, so it came out on the 25th. But I didn't realize that I was going to be also talking about a new album of your own that you have coming out or just released. Can you tell me about that too?
Sure. Yeah. Well, that's exciting too. My band is the Kofy Brown Band, and I haven't released a record since almost 10 years ago, 2010.
That's right. I saw that.
Yeah. So I'm super stoked. It's almost finished, being mixed, and we're going to come out with a single on September, I think it's 10th. And I can go ahead and tell you that single now that I know what it is. It's so open. And the record is going to be called Child of Providence. And I'm just super stoked. Providence was the name of my great-great-grandfather. His name was Providence Powers. And that's such a cool name.
Yeah.
It's such a cool name. And then, I had to, I know what Providence means, but then I had to look it up. And I think the definition that kind of lingered by or just stuck to me was a timely preparation for future eventualities. And I'm like, wow.
Sounds perfect.
Timely pressure. Right. So this record is kind of blues infused, a lot of blues, a lot of funk. One song is an homage to my DC roots. It's a go-go flavor. It's called Slippy Dippy. It's a go-go track. And we just finished mixing that yesterday, so that's fresh in my mind. And I don't know if you know what go-go music is, but that is regional, and it's specific to Washington, D.C., and it's super syncopated, kind of tribal, really. But Chuck Brown and the Soul Searchers, EU, are some of the big names from the go-go scene. So, yeah, I'm super stoked to be releasing another record. This will be number 9 for me. And, it's a new day and age with social media and all of the social platforms and playlists and Spotify and blah, 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 blah. So,
and nonprofit record labels.
And nonprofit record labels, right? It's just crazy. So I'm immersed in music and creativity, and, it's just fun, man. I am having the time of my life right now. And, like sometimes in your life, it's just struggle, work, struggle.
Yeah, right.
And at this particular moment, it's like I almost feel a little bit of the yin and the yang of it, right? I feel the karma is finally tilting towards, oh, you get to enjoy the music, the creations, the work that you've been doing and working and pushing for so long. Not that, I'm rolling in the whatever, but I put it like this. I'm rolling in the joy of it. I'm rolling in the appreciation of it.
You are listening to my conversation with Kofy Brown, and this is a track from her forthcoming album. The track is called Say a Prayer. You know what? I want to sidetrack for a second, lest I forget. But
yeah,
I was thinking when we started the conversation, I would ask you about the fact that you're currently playing drums. You're a vocalist. You play bass. You play a lot of different types of music. Skip the Needle's a pretty hard funk angle of your music. Some of the things I've heard you do in the past are extremely soulful in sound. And then you made a comment when we were talking about Skip the Needle. You had said drums are kind of new to you, and I'm like, oh, now you're just pissing me off. Tell me about your music. Tell me about your musicality and how you came to be as you are on drums, bass, and singing. Because you are, from what I've heard thus far, you're quite good at all of them.
Oh, well, thank you. And, I've just been kind of lucky in a way, lucky to know at a super early age that I wanted to do music. Mm-hmm. I had to do music, I come from a super musical family. And my first instrument is piano. So my grandmother had a little organ, and I play piano a lot in my own band. I write on the keys. And it's kind of like, if you're a gymnast, right? You have maybe a body for it or not, but you're just prone to like do acrobats and flip or if you're a ball player or whatever. And so for music, I could hear melody, I could listen to something and play it, and which was good and bad. It was good that I could do that, but it was bad because I didn't have the discipline to like learn music theory, right? So I'm terrible at notation, and I know a tiny bit of it, but so that's the give and take of it, right? I was able to play and started playing very early in my life, in DC, playing keyboards in several different bands in my brother's band. Mm-hmm. Then once I moved to the Bay, And I became Kofy Brown MC. I was a rapper, right? I was like, I'm gonna be a rapper with a band, though. That was my whole thing. Mm-hmm. And I wrote on the bass, but I didn't play the bass out. You know, I could write on it, just some funk stuff, some soulful stuff, and was rapping to it. And I always knew I could play drums, but I didn't have a set, right? So if I sat on the kit, I could just like knock out a boom tap, something kind of funky, boom, scat, boom, scat, something simple. But I knew, okay, I can play bass. I got rhythm. And I kept telling people, okay, I'm not going to be all fancy. I'm not that person, right? But if you need somebody to hold it down, like, James Brown on the one, you're right. I am from the school of funk. I'm like, I'm pocket. Pocket. So when I started playing, that's what it was like, these are my friends, right? So I'm like, I'm playing the drums. I got to play drums, and my girlfriend had brought me a little kit. I was like, it's on now. And so and it's so funny, man. Roberto, we'll be practicing, right? And Vicky's been doing it a little longer than us. And she plays percussion. And so she's super talented. And she's like, yo, Kofy, technique wise, she'll say, try your roll like this. And I'm like, what are you talking about? That's not comfortable. She's like, no, really, just try it because it'll help you get around the kit faster. And so sure enough, I'm doing something. I'm like, ooh. And I'm like, get the fuck out of here. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to swear.
That's okay.
But I did it, right? And she looked at me like, you did do that. And I was like, I did that. And so it's like, that's what I mean by the encouragement and the fun part of it. It's like, I get to play and I'm playing with people who know music, and they'll be like, try this, try that. And I'm like, all right. And then they'll look at me like, you just did that, yo. I was like, I just did that. And then I get excited and, oh, man, it's on then, right? So
it sounds fun. I'm kind of surprised to hear you say that you are not all that versed in theory. Did you have much formal education musically?
No, that's what I mean. So yeah, I took lessons, I took piano lessons. But I was I could play stuff. I could hear it. I mean, try telling a 10-year-old, and I'll give credit to one of my teachers. He put down a Scott Joplin and some ragtime in front of me. And it was Scott Joplin ragtime. And I learned, because I was interested in the music, right? Mm-hmm. But Prince was my guy. And I'm trying to get the solo for less work. I could play it. And so I'm like, I'm not going to sit here. And, I learned the Scott Joplin and I learned some of, the theory and the notation, but I was busy. I was immersed in it. I was playing. I was in the family band at 8, singing and dancing. And then that just led to my mom got me a piano and, I went to see the Wiz and I was like, I can play this. And she was like, oh shoot, you can play it. And so
nice.
my uncle would be like, oh, play this, baby, old school music, play Stand By Me, do. And I would just play it. And so that's the thing, that's the give and take. When you're naturally good at something, then you forego the formal education that can really, now that I'm older, right, I can if I had known chord theory, chord structures, that would have really helped me develop more of my sound.
Sure.
But, hey, it's never too late. So
that's right.
I'm not mad at it.
I share that with you in that I did not have a lot of formal education and really didn't even take much in the way of lessons until later in life. But I'm actually, my mother-in-law is fond of gifting me Amazon gift certificates, and so not too long ago, I bought a couple of music theory kind of standards for students. So I'm reacquainting myself with reading on drums. So I'm going through the book. I'm saying my goal is to get through this entire book, these 2 books in my life, in my lifetime.
Oh, you'll do it.
Oh, yeah.
Isn't it fun now? Do you find yourself more engaged?
Oh, yeah, it's fun. I mean, I actually hope that it will broaden my vocabulary so that, and I'm sure you can relate, you get around some musicians and it's nice to be able to share their vocabulary where you may not because you didn't spend a lot of time with it. And it's funny. I'm pretty well at the beginning, and I was going through some pages and I've hit this, one where I just, every day I sit down and do it again because I haven't done it well enough to feel like I should go any further. But hey, it is fun. It's very meditative.
Yeah, oh, that's good, man. Just keep doing it because I think you're absolutely right in the conversation. It's like I have shared the stage with some super gifted musicians, and that conversation, I'm like, oh, and you hear it, right? It's like hearing a foreign language and being able to pick out poquito. And then like everything else, baño, okay, and you can, and I'm like, oh, this is, but it's so cool. And, I can get in there, right? It's like, I can get in there. Julie Wolfe is an example. She is the consummate professional, and she can, she's playing the piano, and, we're playing together, and I'm playing bass, and I'm just like, and she'll say, oh, okay, this will help your phrasing if you try it this way. And she'll just say, you will grow off of this phrasing if you can. And she's a good teacher without even knowing. I mean, she knows it, but she's just, gifting me these little gifts.
She's one of your bandmates?
And she's a person that I play behind Gina Breedlove,
okay.
and Julie has played with that. I mean, Julie sits in with Skip the Needle, and we kind of call her the fifth skip, the fifth needle, because she'll, every now and then she'll jump in, and Julie is producing folks, and she's just so versed and so great at what she does. But I've played with her behind Gina Breedlove and behind this other vocalist who's excellent as well as Gina, Marcel Davis Lashley Davis, who, by the way, has a show in Albany at the Ivy Room, September 12th. And that will be myself on bass duties, or drums. Vicky and I, because Vicky will play percussion and sing. Julie Wolfe is going to play, and I think Shelley is going to play as well. And so we might switch things up.
Oh, cool. So, and people will actually get to hear this before that show, so that works out. I noticed, by the way, you've mentioned Vicky a couple of times, and I don't know if you're still doing music with, let's see. Sorry, I lost my place here. There is another band, the Sisters
in the Pit.
Thank you. I don't know if you're still working with them, but as I started looking at them, Skip the Needle, and then I'm looking at your work, but I don't quite see this. But now that I'm hearing you talk, I gathered that there's a cross-pollination of members, or there's at least a few of you who tend to play together a lot off and on in various projects, or maybe even do some subbing or whatnot. Is there, I assume that's true, and Vicky and others that are kind of core to the incestuous kind of thing that goes on with you guys and girls playing in different bands together?
Yes. So again, let me just to make sure, Skip the Needle is Vicky Randall, Kofy Brown, Shelley Doty, Katie Cash. Right. That's Skip the Needle. That's the core. Now, in the broader context, Julie Wolfe will play with us sometimes, because why not? She's our friend, and she's just a badass, so she'll jump on. Then we will play in different configurations with other people. So Gina Breedlove is one of those people. She's a fantastic vocalist. I think she's currently living in close to Atlanta, but we've done some Yoshi's gigs with her. Marcel Davis Lashley, who will be coming out here in September, we've backed her. And that can be, Vicky's included in that, Julie, Shelley, myself. And then, we just like to play, and we like to have fun. So I also, just so you know, play drums in Americana act called Dillbilly.
Okay.
And Dillbilly, oh my God, Dillbilly is such a creative, awesome artist that's doing something completely different than I've ever done in my life. So their music is, kind of roots Americana, a little folkish, I think that's, and a lot of their songs are about birds. And one in particular is about a loon that I just love that song. And Dillbilly has a new record coming out soon. And that's a project that I just really love. Nice. And so it's yes, you get to a point where, I was doing my Kofy Brown thing for, a couple of decades, just that pushing. And then Sisters in the Pit was like a reprise. I get to play bass. I get to just be loud. It was a punk rock and roll band. And we, toured with Iggy Pop, and that was phenomenal, Mike Watt on bass.
Ooh.
He just, I mean, yeah, you know, and just to hang out with these cats. And that was just a pure joy and a lesson too, you know, I mean, a lesson in professionalism, a lesson in longevity. You know, these cats have been around forever.
Yeah.
And it's just, you know, so now it's just like, yeah, if I can make it creative and make it fun, then I'm in a way, and learn something new. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I barely know you, but I got to tell you something I love about you. I love this. I love this about you, is that you really, you seem to pursue just about anything, as long as, stylistically speaking, as long as it's, there's some passion there, it sounds like, or people, as I've heard others say, they're playing like they mean it. And it sounds like you really stay away from limiting your, the different styles that you play in. I like that.
Right on, man. Yeah, I'm just trying to grow. I mean, this is the only life I know I have, right? So I want to just fill it up to the brim, and learn and grow. And I can't help but create. And these different outlets, yeah, it's like, oh, you know, a shuffle, you know, just a country shuffle, and the nuance within that. Then if I bring that to Skip the Needle, it's like, oh shit, but some rock, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like you can fuse these, and then it's just so much more enriching. Yeah, man, I'm in it. I'm in it.
Oh my gosh!
I mean?
If your other friends are this excited about everything you do, I probably wouldn't be able to stand in the room with all of you at the same time.
It's a little maddening. It's a little crazy.
So
you know, it's like you. Go ahead, yeah.
I want to ask you. So you started out around the 90s, I think, and I don't know if that's when you found yourself in the Oakland area, but you mentioned that you at least you have a demarcation of when you started doing the Kofy Brown thing and pushing that. Is that where you initially started in terms of where you consider yourself as being a full-time or pro musician? And is that how it started?
Well, I'm going to say yes, but I and there's got to be a but, because when I was living in D.C., I put 2 records out, 2 vinyls. Mm-hmm. And one, you know, I was, 17 at the time, but it was my friend. We called ourselves Genius and Genius. And it was insane. It was like a bunch of samples, and we both played keyboards. But, you know, it was a 12-inch, and we tried to push it. And then the 2 of us ended up playing in the same sort of Minneapolis-style group called Park Avenue. And we put out a record. Both of these are 12-inch vinyls that I have, and I'm proud of, you know. And but that wasn't as Kofy Brown. That was me as a keyboard player, as a vocalist, Kenya Sims, you know, that's my real name. And that's when I lived in D.C. When I moved out to the Bay in 90, that's when I became Kofy Brown. And it was intentional. You know, me and my partner at the time, we had a little label, Simba Music, and we were like, okay, what kind of rapper are you going to be? And I'm like, well, I'm a musician, so I'm going to play music live. And then, you know, I used to watch all of these blaxploitation movies, Pam Grier, you know, as Foxy Brown, as Sheba Baby, as Kofy. And she was always like a vigilante, you know, fighting for the small dudes, fighting for the people in her community, socially conscious sister. I was like, oh, yeah, that's going to be me. I'm going to be that socially conscious sister, you know?
Nice.
And so Kofy Brown, MC, that's, and like my rhymes from 93 till now really always have, you know, a socially conscious message. I mean, in Skip the Needle, you know, Black Lives. I mean, Vicky writes, we all write, but we all have that message of, you know, community. This is what's going on. This is how we have to help change the world for a better. And that stuck, you know what I mean? Yeah. And even so this record, you know, So Opens the first single for my Kofy Brown record, but then Say a Prayer is about, you know, Sandra Bland and Freddie Gray and Walter Scott and Eric Garner and all of these people, you know, oh my God, just, and it's, so that's on the new record too, you know, and that's in Skip the Needle stuff. So
very cool.
Yeah.
And
I get long-winded, man, and then I just start going. You got me at a very creative moment. Like I said, I'm mixing now. So I've been mixing for the last 2 days, and now I'm talking to you. So sorry.
No, it's okay. It tells me I'm doing I'm doing my thing right here, and it's also okay. I've done it enough times where I know I got to come in sometimes and just try and get something in. I do want to ask, which I think is a nice segue or dovetail off of how you kind of got started. But you've been doing this for a while, and you mentioned earlier that you feel rich in terms of the happiness and the joy that you're getting out of it, and it sounds like you're in high demand. And so I did want to ask you about this before we even started talking, because it looked to me, given the various projects that you're in, some of which I didn't even know about, and certainly not the ones in the past that you have been in, or that you are in high demand. What has or is, and I think this would be nice for other musicians to hear, but what has or is working best for you in terms of keeping yourself in demand?
Well, I don't know really the answer to that, so I'm going to give you my perspective on that,
Sure.
Right? I think there's a level of professionalism that is not really talked about. And maybe instead of using professionalism, I'll just use courtesy, right? So, like, if you're a band and you go to a venue and you're rude to the sound person, or, you take up all the time for sound check for the other band, then you start getting a reputation of, like, not easy to work with. Let's say that. And I think for me personally, this goes back to just what I call good home training. And I thank my mom now for it. My mom was a single parent, and she raised me and my brother. And, for her, it was about us being kind human beings, compassionate, respectful people. And if she could raise a kind, respectful, compassionate human being, then she had done her job. And so for me, I treat everyone the same. Nobody is better than anybody is better than me. We're all the same. We're all people. And I try to just be respectful and nice and courteous. I show up on time. I show up when I say I'm going to show up. If the sound check, we get 30 minutes, I take 30 minutes. I don't take an hour. If the sound man is having a problem, I try to empathize. I'm like, hey, can we get some? If you can, if not, I get it, and so I think that goes a long way, being that same type of considerate person throughout, my life. And just knowing that in every situation, it's going to be so much easier if I come to it with a sense of, courtesy and kindness and some, some just regular old good times, right? I'm just here for a good time, man. Yes. I'm here to, express some creativity,
sure.
Express some music, some joy, whatever, and afford you the same type of courtesy that I want you to afford me. And that's really not talked about, right? That's really not, especially in the musician circle, until you are one of those musicians and you realize, like, I know tons of people who won't play with a lot of people who seem like they're in high demand because they're jerks or they're rude or they're, prima donnas.
Right.
And so I think I get gigs because I'm a nice person. That comes down to just, I'm easy to be around. I'm like, hey, and I'm not going to be a jerk. So I think that's the real answer. I don't know if that's true or not.
No,
I have talent and all of that stuff, but
absolutely, it's a recurring theme, and thanks for sharing that. Do you? I guess I was about to ask: do you have opportunities where you've worked with people in the past that they're kind of on the line in terms of, there's a courteous, compassionate person in there, but there's also a person who tends to get maybe it's frustrated or and they might find themselves doing things that they probably shouldn't, and sort of gets them out of that appearance of being professional and courteous. Have you ever had the opportunity, I guess, to mentor someone in that capacity, or do you just maybe kind of do that out of by example.
Yeah. So, yes, I know many people who I don't think intentionally they want to be a rude person, right? But they get short, they get frustrated. And I get that. I'm not trying to say I'm perfect. I get it. It's just this is my disposition, so I'm fortunate around that piece. I got some other issues. But
Don't we all?
Don't we all, man? But yeah, I try not to butt in unless it's, if it's in a band that I'm playing with, then obviously, I'll try to be like, hey, y'all, come on, let's be professional here because, that's how we would want to be treated. Or let's give the person some slack. Maybe they're having a rough night. I don't know. But if it's just someone that I know and I'm playing with that's not in my band, I don't stick my business into it too much. I do try to show by example. I think that's the most powerful thing, right?
Sure.
Do what I do, not what I say.
Mm-hmm,
It's like kids, right? Kids are perfect for that. I got a lot of what I call my little nephews and nieces, and they do what you do. They don't do what you say. They see how you act.
Yeah.
They see whether you say thank you or, please, or they see if you are rude to servers or, you know what I mean?
Yes.
And that so people really respond to what you do. And, it's, and people are sometimes, all of us, we just have a hard day or a rough time at it.
Yeah.
So you asked me about longevity and opportunity. And I think really it's a lot of people that might, lose their temper and apologize. I've seen plenty of musicians go, listen, I'm sorry. I didn't mean that. And the sound people, they get that, right? But then there are just some really rude people out there. So I want to make the distinction between occasionally somebody like what you just described.
Yeah.
They have, the perception is that they may not be as generous and patient and they get a little testy, but that's not who they really are. That's
right.
One thing.
Yeah.
Versus somebody who really is, and it shows and maybe the opportunities or even don't come around as much because it's just too difficult. People just don't want to expend the energy.
Yeah, absolutely. I was listening to another podcast earlier in the week, and the subject of mental health was it wasn't the subject of the entire podcast, but it came up, and I was reminded that sometimes when people slip into a hard time in that arena of their life, that they can get agitated easily. But as you had pointed out there, if you know someone and kind of know who they really are, okay, I know they're just having a moment. And but the thing I think that really kind of stuck with me is when you have someone that you're close enough to and can do it anyway. There was an example that was given where this particular person who was sharing a lot of his personal stuff and what he's done to kind of stay good. He works with a family member in their business, and that member recognizes when he slips into an area of where he's just not feeling himself, and he starts getting kind of agitated. And he'll always recognize it, and he'll tell him, "Hey, man, take the rest of the day off," or something like that. So anyway, I guess that we can, as musicians, to sort of think about. That was kind of it was a little bit of a new thing for me to hear, and I was interested in it because I've been fortunate with most of all of my life, just about. I've never really had a lot of what I would consider challenges in the area of mental well-being, mental health, but I have in somewhat recent times, went through an off period, so I could relate to the not feeling yourself and all that. And I guess as musicians, maybe we can tell ourselves if we see that from someone that we know is not really that way. It's something to consider, try and get them to step out of the situation for a little while so they can recover or get some downtime or whatever.
That's real.
Yeah. This one, switching gears again, but what's the one area that you struggle in where your music is concerned right now these days?
Where I struggle. Well, I don't think I look at it as struggling at this point in my career, like the trajectory that I'm on. I look at it as growing. And I have a lot to learn in general. So it's like stages. We go in stages, right? You know, I think songwriter first, probably, and then a musician second. And
it pissing me off again because you're such a good musician.
Oh, thank you. But so that's where I struggle, though. If or that's my opportunity of growth in reality
as a musician.
Yeah, and keeping up sort of my chops on bass and drums that I don't regularly play the bass anymore, so I'm playing drums. And I think that as a drummer, so, you know, Vicky's bass, I'm drums, and we're even saying to each other, let's get in that zone where we can really like lock in. And so I'm just really trying to grow in my timing, like timing. You know, I've done some projects, Spirit and Bones, written by Sarah Bush. It was a dance project. It took place last October over a period of 3 days at the Herbst Theater in San Francisco. It was a beautiful, beautiful work that she brought in Skip the Needle and Fifth Needle Julie, all of us, to
Fifth Needle
play the music live, and for her dancers at a performance. And that was challenging work, super challenging. And I had to play to a click track. And like I said, I'm just really learning drums. And that was a big challenge. And I'd always thought and knew I had really good rhythm and timing. But it's a whole nother world to play to a click track. I mean, you're a drummer, so you probably know this. So that is what I'm really trying to like settle into and grow into. And even with Bill Billy, we did, you know, I went into in the studio, and I had to play, like, I think the beats per minute was like 62 BPMs. That's so slow. And I had to just settle into that, right? And I'm like, I can do this. So that's the area where I call it like settling in, right? Just fall into the rhythm, fall into it. Because I know it, but I got to really know it. And
the
so
click,
that and just...
I was going to say the click track is funny. I mean, the first time I did it, this was long ago, but I was in a big studio in Dallas, a big one. A friend of mine was an engineer there and also a fine musician. We were recording a demo, and they turned on the click track for me. It was my first time, and I couldn't do it. I mean, I probably could have, but we didn't want to be there all night, right? So we bailed on it, and fortunately my timing was adequate to get through the session. But then my later experiences have been, for me personally, not to be too obsessive about being on it at every click, but making sure that I'm really close to it at every click, and that I always come back to it when I'm not, and that seems to balance out pretty well.
So yes, I hear you, and that's a lesson that I've recently learned. You know, when we went in with Skip just this March, Kid will tell you, I bailed on a lot of the click tracks. I was on it for a couple times. I was like, you know, and everyone, they said, just come close to it. Just get, you know, in the vicinity and try to, and I was good at that. I could do that. And that's a part of it. That's a level. But, you know, if I really ask myself, and of course, all of us, we have our areas that we want to grow in and get better at, right? I want to nail that, because the drummer in my band, okay, here's the difference. Tony Providence, he's a drummer, and he plays also for the Purple Ones, but he's my drummer as well. We went in the studio, 25th Street Studios, and he played to a click track, I mean, flawlessly, and he's like double bassing it and all of this crazy stuff.
Wow.
And I'm like, oh my God, this cat is just off the hinges, you know, with his timing. So it's crazy. And that's what I'm looking for, you know, or Allison Miller, you know, she will just go some jazz nutballs, and that is just fucking on like popcorn on. You know what I mean?
Man. Yeah, it sounds fun that you're around all these highly talented people, and also going back to the question about your struggle, that it's really just about growth, which is lovely.
Yeah, and that's what they remind me of, right? So if I'll just have a brief conversation or with Tony. Tony is just, he'll mentor me in a way. He's seen me drum, and he's like, yeah, sis, all you got to do is, in little things, or Vicky, or, I hear Allison. Yeah. And they just tell me, and I take it. These are nuggets, man, from these people. And it's true. Yeah. You grow into it. And if you practice it long enough and play it out, and you find yourself doing it, and it's like, what? And that's the fun part of music, right? What? Did I just do that?
Yeah. What would you say to younger artists that are quick to come up with a couple things when I say to them or ask them, what is your biggest struggle right now, or your number one challenge in music, and one comes out quickly, but what would you say to them, having been in the business as long as you have and being at such a great place with your music and your opportunity?
So what would I say to them around struggle?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, okay.
Your words of wisdom for them.
Yeah, because I have, right on. I do have hindsight, right? And I look, I have a lot of years on this planet now. And I would say a couple things. I would say trust in yourself, and be easy with yourself, because, in my 20s, I pushed myself so hard and was so like, and would just be crazed if I didn't do it the way I intended to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And that can get you somewhere. But if you kind of slow it down, just slow it down, slow whatever you're doing, whatever you're trying to work through, just slow it down, have a little bit more patience, and trust that you will get it. And just know that it's not immediate. And I think this is difficult in 2019, where in 95 or in 2000, it wasn't as difficult because we didn't have, these platforms, Instagram, Snapchat, Facebook, yada, 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 where everything was just quick.
Right.
And if you look at the music, Spotify and I can't think of all of them, but YouTube is perfect. You can just write something and put it on YouTube, or you see something on YouTube and you think that you're supposed to be that good because you see it and you're supposed to just be able to do it. Or you have, rock guitar, hero guitar, and it's not even playing guitar, you're just pressing buttons. If you're a musician, and I know it's a lot of kids, I know young people, they're in the jazz camp, or Berkeley rep, or, just slow it down, stay off social media, take what I call a digital break. Seriously, that would be this is my advice. Take a digital break, because it takes time to get good. Just know that it takes time.
My mom always said that.
Right? It's true.
It is. True. It is. Totally.
So, that's all I got. And they probably heard that before. And it's true. People keep saying it because it's just true. And so get out your own mind too, right? Take a digital break. Let's summarize this for the youngies. Take a digital break. Be easy with yourself and have patience.
I love it.
Grasshopper. Patience, grasshopper.
I love it, and I think it's the difference between, like, for you and I, we didn't start out with a digital device in our hands and went quite a ways through life before we encountered that, and a lot of the artists now hardly either have a time that they don't remember having that, or they never had a time where there wasn't a digital device in their hand. Kofy, thank you for spending time with me. I guess I would do my listening audience a great service by saying they can find out everything about you, where you are, and just sort of all the splinters into your world on the socials and online and musically at kofybrown.com, and it's KOFY brown.com. Great website, by the way. And
thank you.
I look forward to checking out your album, and as I said, checking out the Skip the Needle album. I've only seen like this video. I'm like, oh, these girls are good. So I'm looking forward to that.
Which video is that? Let me.
It's the one that's been on Facebook, and you're playing some live show. It kind of looks outdoors.
We ain't never going back at El Rio.
Yeah,
yes,
I think so.
I'm gonna send you. Battle Cry, Skip the Needle Battle Cry. And let me just say, we have a show coming up in conjunction with Little Village Records Foundation, August 17th at the Freight and Salvage in Berkeley. So for your audience, please come. We have plenty of time. This is going to air on the 9th. That's Skip the Needle, along with the whole roster of Little Village Foundation at the Freight and Salvage in Berkeley, August 17th.
That'll be awesome. Well, thanks again, Kofy. I will talk to you again very soon. Hey, if you're a regular listener of the podcast, you know that I'm a fan of Bandzoogle. Let me tell you why. Bandzoogle powers websites for thousands of musicians around the world, from garage bands to Grammy winners. They have an easy-to-use system to help you get your site up fast. Lots of mobile-friendly templates to help you customize and design your site. It's built for musicians by musicians. Here are some of the features that Bandzoogle has. They have a merch and download store to sell music and merch commission-free right on your website. A tour calendar to promote your shows and sell tickets commission-free, mailing list tools to grow your fan list and send professional-looking emails and newsletters, integrations to pull in content from all your socials, and live support from a musician-friendly team 7 days a week. Plans start at just $8.29 a month, but you can go to bandzoogle.com to start a 30-day free trial. You can use the promo code ROBONZO, ROBONZO, to get 15% off the first year of any subscription. That's bandzoogle.com, promo code ROBONZO, ROBONZO, to build your artist website today. Look for links to just about everything talked about in this episode in the episode show notes at unstarvingmusician.com/podcast. Thanks again so much for listening. With much gratitude, peace, love, and more cowbell.